In this video, we're going to talk about how to create a template for anamorphic art. That is, creating a figure, for example, like this that appears to be standing upright from certain perspectives. So, for example, if you're doing chalk art on the sidewalk, this figure would, if you approach the figure, it would look like it was standing upright. In order to do that, the figure has to be distorted on the sidewalk itself. So from the front it looks standing up. So what we're going to do is, and we use perspective, the template we'll be using will have a perspective grid on it, that'll help us do that. So let's start this process. First of all, decide what size grid you're going to want to have and everything else, and make sure that your art is compatible with that. This particular piece of art, I brought it in and resized it. So if I look at the art itself, I've set it up at 2400 pixels. That's 8 inches by 8 inches, 300 dpi. Okay. So what I'm going to do is create a new file. This new file is going to be the template file, and it's going to be let's say 8 by 8, 300 dpi. This one here. 8 by 8, 300 dpi should be the same. So that's the same size as the image I'm going to try to be using. Okay, doesn't have to be exactly the same size, but something that's compatible. You don't want to bring in the image and have it way too big for the sheet or way too small, and then have to stretch it out and lose resolution. All right. So now I'm starting off. This is the basis of my template. We'll leave it alone for just now, and come back to it in a minute. So what we'll do is let's create a new file now. And in the new file, what I'm going to do is overlay two grids on this. One will be a background grid, and one will be a perspective grid down here. And for that, we'll need grid lines, right? So we'll create the grid lines using a new image. So File, New. I'm going to start with the one same size as the one I just had, but now I'm going to go to Image size, because I want this to be 1/10 the size of the other one. The reason for 1/10 is I want 10 grid lines across the other image. So these will be little boxes or little grid lines. Okay, so now I've got that as 1/10 the other one. What I have to do now is create a lines around this little box, a grid box. In order to do that, you can do that with the FX function down below on the layers, but it doesn't work as well, and I've run into trouble doing that. First of all, unlock your layer, go up to Edit, and use Stroke here. The first stroke I'm going to do is 6 pixels and be blue, so I'll have a blue grid box, and then I'll have a red grid box. So I'm adding a blue grid box to this. So this little box, hard to see here, has a little blue grid on it. You can see it a little bit better here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fill out of this box, make it transparent, so that when I overlay it on the image itself, the grid lines will show on top of the image. In the end, at the very last step, will show on top of the image, and you'll be able to see the image through the grid. So the way I'll do that is I'll use the magic wand tool here. Okay, the magic wand tool, and I'll select white. So I've select the entire inside of the box. I'll just do select inverse. Now I've selected the blue line. I'll go to layers down here and create a new layer with that selection. So what you can see, what happens now if I turn off the underlying layer, I've got a transparent layer with the blue on there, right? That's it. Now if I want to do the same thing and create a red box, I can do that too. But let's first of all create a pattern with this blue box. So what I'm going to do is go to Edit, Define Pattern, blue grid. Okay, so I've defined a pattern with that. I'll use that pattern later on when I go back to the template. Okay, now I want to do the same thing, create a blue or a red pattern. I want to take off the blue thing that I had here. Just go back to my underlying layer here. What now I'm going to do is just do the stroke again but with red. Okay. You'll see how in a second how I'll use these patterns. I got these red grid and blue grid. I don't need the grid box anymore, so I can actually close that one out. I'm going to go back to my template, the base of the template that we talked about before. And on this base of the template now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 new layers, and I'll make them transparent also. So I'll do that not by copying the bottom layer. I'm leaving the bottom layer so you can see it as a background. I'll just click twice on the new layers, and you can see if I take the background off, they're transparent. Okay. On one layer, this bottom layer here, I'll create a blue grid. All right. So I'm going to do edit, fill with a pattern. The patterns we created. We created 2 new patterns. One was a grid blue and one was a red. So I'll do okay. So now it's got a 10 by 10 grid on that one. Let me go to the top one. I'll turn that one off just so you can see. I'll go to the top one here, and we'll do the same thing. Edit, fill, pattern. We'll take the red pattern here. So now I've got a red pattern and a blue pattern. So I take the red pattern. They overlay each other perfectly, okay? So now they've got these 2 pattern boxes on top of the white. If I take the white off, you can see it's transparent. Let's go to the top one here. And what I'm going to do now is create the perspective grid on which should be the floor, where the image will lie. And then what we'll do is distort that image so it'll appear as it would from directly up above, so it can be painted on the concrete or wherever you're painting it on. So here I'm going to the top grid. I'm going to distort that grid. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to go down to Edit, Transform, Free Transform. It gives me my bounding boxes here. I'm going to pull this down to about 1/3 of the way down. Whoops, I don't want to do a all at once here. So let's go to just pull down this thing so it's about 1/3 of the way down. That'll be fine. Okay, so I've got that smaller one transformed down there. I'll commit to that. I'm going to go now to Edit, Transform again, but this time it's Perspective. I'm going to pull in the corners now to about 1/3 again. That's roughly right. So now I've got the concrete floor, if you will, where the image will lie. I'll commit to that. Let's bring in the image now of the angel. So this angel image can come in, and we will lay it on top of the little floor that we had here. I will bring her up until she's the base of the angel is on the base of the image. Okay, so the angel now is lying on top of this other floor. I will also use perspective here to bring her in. If it doesn't do it all at once, you can hold the shift key down, and it'll bring it in from the center. I'll bring it in so the top of her wings are just touching the top of that grid that I've got there. Okay. Now I've got her placed on the floor where I want her. Okay, I'll commit to that. Now what I'll do is I'll select the angel and the perspective floor, and we'll distort this. We'll use this to distort what we would look like if painted on the ground. In other words, the grid that we want on the ground. So we've got these both selected now. I'll go back to Edit, Transform. Oops, let's not get that out of line here. Take this up to the top. Probably going to have to do a little bit more after I do this. I'll take it all the way up to the top. Commit to that. Then Edit, transform perspective. Okay, we got that, and we got to pull her out and straighten her up. Okay, I want those lines to line up. What I'm doing is looking at the lines, and when I get them to line up, that's where I want it, okay? So it appears now that this is, the top is all the way at the top, the lines are lined, and that's the distorted perspective that I wanted. So I'll commit to that. Now I've got the angel with the grid lines. If I wanted to create or superimpose a grid on top of the angel so that I could see and paint this, help paint on the sidewalk, it's easy enough to do. I can create a new layer. I can either pull one of these layers up above, which is probably the easiest thing to do. Okay, now I've got the grid superimposed on top of the angel, okay, which that's an easy thing to do. If I don't want to do that, I could leave that grid there, and I can just create a new blank layer on top of the angel, on top of the angel, and fill that with a grid line like we did before, okay. So that's it. Now you've got the distorted image that can be projected using these grid lines. Let's put the grid lines back on so that your artist can paint the angel appropriately on the sidewalk. Okay, and if you don't want to see white behind it, you can take the white off.